talk leadership, I do leadership, and I write leadership. So this is what I do as part of my life.
What does leadership mean to you?
Heraclitus always says that change is the only constant thing. I tend to tell people that it's not just change that's the only constant thing. Leadership is the only constant thing. As a leader, you should be able to influence others. If you're able to influence people, then you'll be an effective leader. In the next couple of years, the kind of leader that we need going forward is a leader that's able to serve others, a leader that is empathetic, because leadership is a team sport.
Welcome to another episode of the Social Impact Journal with me, your host, Jack Farron. This is a podcast where I meet with changemakers around the world driving social impact. This week, I'm meeting Professor Christian Harrison. He's a professor of leadership at the University of Bolton and the founding director at the Centre for Leadership and Empowerment. Now, those that watch the show every week might remember Christian from episode 9 when we were recording virtually, but this is the first time we're getting together in person in studio here in Bolton in the UK. We're going to be talking about what the next generation of leaders look like. So I hope you enjoy the show, and if you do, please share with your friends, colleagues, subscribe to our YouTube, and if you're listening to the show, please do follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever platform you're here. So Christian, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here. How are you?
And thanks Jack, for inviting me. It's great to be here as well. So I'm doing good, and it's great to see you in Bolton as well.
Amazing. So we spent the last 2 days together, haven't we, at the Developing Leadership Capacity Conference in Bolton. So it's been a good experience, and glad we can have some time now to record a podcast.
It was a great one, really. It has taken months of preparing for this. Getting an international conference is not an easy feat, really. We had speakers from all parts of the world talking about leadership, and it was great to have you as well in the panel. So thank you for coming.
Amazing. So before we get into the topic, who is Dr. Christian Harrison, and what does a day in the life of Christian look like?
Oh, it's as a professor, many times people think that, oh yes, you don't do so much, but sometimes like 24 hours is never enough. So a day in my life is very, very busy one. I do a lot of talks, keynotes. Like I was telling you some minutes ago, I'm going to do a keynote for the Nigerian Society of Engineers tomorrow, and I do a lot of talks, and sometimes you have to go around examinations. So many things you need to do, consulting, PhD supervisions. It keeps you very busy, but I enjoy it. I love it. I think that's what I love about the job, being able to impact and also support others. But a day in my life is a very busy one, but an enjoyable one.
Brilliant. So you're with the University of Bolton now, but we met when you were with University of West Scotland near Glasgow. So where have you been in your career, and which cities and countries have you had the opportunity to work in?
Good. I don't travel like you, Jack. I know you travel around the world, but of course I've traveled around. I tend to do a lot of travels. I've worked in Birmingham. I've worked in Scotland. Right now I'm working in Bolton as well. But my job takes me around. I do a lot of talks, like I said. Months ago I was in Ireland. I will still be in Ireland again. So I'm also in Nigeria. I have a project, a UKRI project as well that I run in Nigeria. So I do that, and I tend to travel beyond Canada and some other parts of the world. I want to go to Asia soon as well, so it's good. But my job takes me everywhere, talking, providing impact, research projects, those things. But I'm not counting the number of countries I've gone to. I need to do a count. You just reminded me.
You can buy one of those maps, and you can pin all the places you've gone to.
Exactly. I need to. I think right now what I do is I have a fridge. I tend to put those places, but I think I need to make it more organized and orderly. But I've been to a couple of countries, but I need to find out the number.
Definitely. So let's start. What does leadership mean to you? As a professor in leadership, you talk about it every day. So if you can kind of drill it down into a few sentences, what does leadership mean to you?
I talk leadership, I do leadership, and I write leadership. So this is what I do as part of my life. But what I always say, like a lot of us know about change, and Heraclitus always says that change is the only constant thing. I tend to tell people that it's not just change that's the only constant thing. Leadership is the only constant thing. And that's why effective leadership is important. A lot of people have defined leadership in different ways. People say, okay, leadership is the ability to influence people, to achieve a common goal. We have people saying, oh, there is good leadership and all that. For me, I believe that leadership is influence. It's just one word. It's all about influencing others. And that's how I've defined it in my books, how I've defined it in everything I say. As a leader, you should be able to influence others. If you're able to influence people, then you'll be an effective leader. But it leads to the next word. How do you influence people? What do you need to do to influence others? So for me, leadership is influence. But of course, a lot of people have come up with different, in academia, what is leadership? What is management? People come up with different terms. But for me, just one word. Leadership is influence.
But I guess over time, how to influence people changes, right? And in the world that we now live in, what is the difference that you've seen, let's say in the past 20 years of how, effective influencing can actually take place?
It's good. Of course, I've written a couple of books on leadership. And when you look at how leadership has evolved over time, leadership used to be very heroic. And then to say, okay, yes, it's all about the traits of a leader. It was always the great man approach to leadership. Leaders are born great. There's something special about Jack that makes Jack a leader. Followers want to follow you because you were special. But over time, we realized that the whole idea of having heroic leadership is not the best way to go. Leadership has evolved over time. We don't just want heroic leaders. We don't just want leaders that believe, okay, yes, leaders are born that way. But we're trying to develop a new style of leadership. So leaders should not just be there to, okay, yes, I'm the leader. No. For me, one of the approaches to leadership I strongly believe that every leader should take is a call to service. It's about servant leadership. It's a call to serve. Leaders should be there to serve others. And for me, that is the approach that would be important going forward. That style of leadership is important. I have written on that a couple of times, and I know that. And when you look at the world today, the reason why many people are not doing well as leaders is because they believe that the focus should be on them. I strongly believe that leadership is not about me, but it's about we. It's about getting people to work with you, by serving people. If as a leader, what fascinates you is the fact that you have to know everything, then you cannot be that leader. Followers now want leaders that are there to help them, that are there to support them, that are there to serve them. And that leads to a couple of skills. And it's so important that you don't look at leadership as just being you, but it's a team sport. Yeah. That's how leadership should be.
I know there's so many different leadership types, right, and approaches. So maybe if you can just share a few of them and what characteristics one individual must have to be that type of leader.
I'll answer that question. Jack, go and buy my book on leadership. But of course, I've written about this, different theories on leadership. So I could go through the whole evolution. But of course, leadership started with the whole great man approach. So leaders, okay, these are for you to be a leader, you have to be born great. And it even had a masculine perspective. That's why many people, when they talk about leadership, they talk about, oh, the leader is a man. So even when people make that mistake, or they always have the idea that leaders should be men. So there was this idea about the great man. Okay, these are the characteristics or traits of the leader. Okay, yes, you have Alexander the Great. So you had to be strong. You had to lead from the front. The leader was the strongest person. So there were traits that would make you a leader, and that led to the trait theory of leadership. And that's the whole idea: is leaders are born and they are not made. So you have to have those traits to be a leader. I always tell, when I do talk, I tell them, okay, yes, that the whole idea is that if your mother is not Hillary Clinton and your dad is not Bill Clinton, then it means that you can't be the next president of America. That's what it means. That's the whole idea of the trait approach to leadership. It's all genetic. It's about the traits you have. But over time, we realize that it's not about what leaders possess. It's actually about what leaders do. Because at the end, if leadership is about what you do, if it's about what you possess, then people can learn to be leaders. And that's the whole idea. It evolved away from that, and we moved into the style of leadership. So we're there to see the behavior. Okay, yes, let's think about what leaders actually do, how leaders behave. Because you as a leader, you're judged based on how you behave as a leader. So leadership behavior. So you had people looking at, the Ohio studies, looking at how leaders, compassionate leaders or task-oriented leaders, is there to evolve. But the part I really like about the evolution is the skill set or the skill theory on leadership. People there to say, okay, yes, let's look at, if leadership is about doing, then you also need to understand the skill set you require to be a leader. So there are a lot of people like me that are really advocates of the leadership skill theory. But there are other theories of leadership. You have the transformational leadership theory, and many people say, okay, leaders should be transformational. Like for many people that love movies, I love movies, and you have Transformers, and you see that, okay, yes, as leaders, you should be able to transform your organization. So a lot of people have gone with that mentality about transformational leadership. You also have transactional leadership. Leadership is about transactions. So those politicians that we know, vote for me, and I will give you this. If you do this, you will get this. So people who have looked at it, okay, it's all about transactions. And you have leadership that is about charismatic leadership, where people are, okay, charismatic leaders. We have seen them everywhere. You have the likes of Jeff Kennedy, you have the likes of other people that are very charismatic. That leadership is about charisma. But over time, there are other theories that have emerged. You have entrepreneurial leadership that I always write about as well. And I believe that leaders should be able to identify opportunities, take risks, and also exploit them.
So are those the main traits of what you would say an entrepreneurial leader has?
Exactly. And when I look at you, Jack, I know that you're an entrepreneurial leader, because conversations I've had where you can see that you're able to identify the opportunities, you're able to exploit them, because as an entrepreneurial leader, those things are very important. And you can't be averse to risk as well. You should be able to take risk. So leadership is really, there are different theories and approaches, but I always say it also depends on the situation as well. So there might not be a perfect style to leadership, but you should be able to know the approach to take depending on the situation.
Right, okay. So if you saw someone and you were speaking with them, how long would it take you to work out what type of leader they are?
Okay, I'm not a prophet in that sense, but I'm able to. By the time I talk with you, of course, I would start like as a consultant. The current questions that you ask, I have different surveys or skill sets that I know. So even without asking, just filling my questionnaire or my skill set would make me understand the kind of leadership you tend to do. But just asking questions about how you relate with your team, asking questions about what leadership means to you, just by defining leadership, asking you, give me an example of an effective leader to you. So like, okay, yeah. So if I ask you that kind of question, and the first person that comes to your mind might be Richard Branson, it tells me, okay, he's looking at leadership from an entrepreneurial perspective. He's looking at leadership from a business perspective. Or if I ask you the question and the first person that you mention might be Obama, okay, then he believes that leadership is about communication, leadership is about charisma. And it's the examples you give most of the time that would also make me understand how you view leadership as well. And the way you view leadership will also determine how you act as a leader. So there are a couple of questions I would ask you when I do my consulting that will make me understand, okay, yes, beyond even feeling the skill set, I tend to understand what you feel about leadership and the way you relate with your team. Because most of the time, leaders tend to have an over-exaggerated view of themselves. And when you have leaders that have that view, then it means that they're not self-aware as well.
So let me take that question and fire it back to yourself. So first of all, I want you to tell me three different types of leaders. But the first is one that's not in the public domain. So maybe a leader that many people that are watching the episode, they may not have heard of before or heard of a story. But is there one leader that you've seen in your career that you're really inspired by their approach?
Okay, good question, Jack. You're taking it back to me, isn't it? You're asking me the question I always ask people. And the good thing is, like I said, most of the time when you give people those kind of questions, it makes you understand how they view leadership. I'll give you asked for three, isn't it?
No, so the first one is someone that's not in the public domain. Then I'm going to ask in politics and then in business. So we can start with the unknown leader.
Okay, the unknown leader because most of the time you might not know the person, but my unknown leader, I would say, is interesting in that sense. So you don't want me to mention somebody that you know.
Exactly.
So the person I will be mentioning then is, my dad, I would say. So my dad is, he's late now, but he was definitely a great inspiration to me. One of the things that I really learned from him was the fact that as a leader, he was charismatic. Although personally, I know charisma could also be something that you're born with, but he was charismatic. He was able to get people in the room, and people could feel that gift of grace. When he was in the room, people knew that there was somebody special. A lot of people were always around him. So charisma was there. But one thing that also makes me believe that he was, of course, my typical example of a leader is that he was there to serve people. there was never a time that he wouldn't do anything to help others. He believed in helping people. For him, that was key. And that's why I said servant leadership is important. So he would give his last dime to support others. Even when he didn't have, he would give and help people. And that's one of the things that leaders should do. You should be able to, okay, yes, even if you don't have something, like I remember we're doing the conference, and we're looking at the bags to give, and the team, one person didn't have a bag. But I felt as a leader, I don't need to have a bag when somebody else doesn't have one. A leader shouldn't be having something while the follower. And they were begging me, "Oh, Christian, take this bag." I said, "No, have it." And that's how it should be. And she felt like, wow, he's ready to give it for me. And by doing that, you see that you endear yourself to them. And that's what leadership is. Leadership is about touching the lives of others. Leadership is about not thinking about yourself, but about thinking about people. And for me, my dad was definitely a good example of that.
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic example. So next, politician.
Politician, I don't have a view of politics, but really,
or even someone in history.
Okay, they're better in history. As a professor of leadership, when I do interviews and media interviews, I try to stay clear of living examples. Exactly. But either way, I think in politics, there are many examples you could always give, but the typical one that many people would align with, and is Nelson Mandela. And not just a textbook example, but I strongly believe that he's a good example of a leader. Nelson Mandela, of course, when he died, the world stood still. You see that there was something about him. Everybody, even people that didn't know him. And I always tell people, if you want to know how popular you are, when you die, let's see how the media headlines you get. And don't die when somebody like Mandela dies, because it means that you're not strong enough. But either way, Nelson Mandela, he died, but the one good thing about him is he was able to impact South Africa, the first black South African president during a time of racism and all that, the apartheid, the ANC leader. He was ready to die for what he believed in, and even though he was from a privileged position, he still was ready to serve people, and he was there committed. He was there to serve others. And that's why South Africa changed. But one thing I really loved about him is he could have stayed there for the rest of his life. The truth is, although he had 5 years, but he knew when to step aside and let others lead. A great leader knows when his attributes or her attribute does not match the occasion or the next time to be in government. But many of our leaders don't know that, unfortunately. And that's why leadership is about serving people. And that's why when he died, everybody was endeared to him. So he's a very strong example, and he was a very good communicator. Yeah. When you hear the way he speaks, although he had a South African accent, as you would expect, but he had a great command of communication. And leadership is also, communication is very key as a leader. So Nelson Mandela, a good example.
Brilliant. So you said you've written a lot about entrepreneurial leadership. So if we look at a business leader, either past or present, who would you look to there as a good example?
Okay, now good examples of entrepreneurial leaders. One of the things I tend to do really, although of course many people will hear entrepreneurial leadership and they will think it's leadership by entrepreneurs. I always say that entrepreneurial leadership is a style of leadership. It's not just unique to entrepreneurs, but anybody can be an entrepreneurial leader. You can be a university principal and be an entrepreneurial leader. You can be a doctor and be an entrepreneurial leader. It's a type of leadership. It's a leadership that involves identifying opportunities, exploiting them, taking risks. They have a skill set of what it takes to be an entrepreneurial leader. So for me, entrepreneurial leaders wasn't just be business leaders. So, but either way, my example of a great entrepreneurial leader, there are many ones, but I will go with Steve Jobs. Okay. So although he's a controversial example for some people, but when you look at what he has been able to achieve, starting with Apple, you will see that he did a lot, and he shaped the smartphone market. Like now, you either have an Apple or the Samsung, and it was, of course, with the energy of Steve Jobs, the creativity of Steve Jobs. One of the things that we spoke about during the international conference was innovation and creativity. And as an entrepreneurial leader, you need to be able to be creative and also innovative. And Steve Jobs was very good at that, identifying opportunities. And he was never afraid to take risk, as if when you read his stories. But one thing is generating great ideas, being creative and innovative is so important as an entrepreneurial leader. And that's one of the, when you look at businesses, Steve Jobs was there in entrepreneurial leadership.
So we've looked at some examples from the past. So let's look ahead to the future. What does an effective leader in 2030 or 2040 look like, and how does that differ to the present day?
Thank you, Jack. You can see, like, one of the things I said is in previous years, you're looking at having like a heroic approach to leadership that was focused on one person. But right now, going forward, we had a pandemic years ago, and things would always change. But right now, in the next couple of years, the kind of leader that we need going forward is a leader that's able to serve others, a leader that is empathetic, because leadership is a team sport. It's not just one person. Like I always say, leadership is about we and not me. So you need to, how can you get people to work with you? How can you get people to follow you? And it's by getting the trust of your followers. So if you're going to be able to lead during the times of change, in order to lead going forward, then you should be there to serve people. And that is very important. Being empathetic has become very key. Knowing how your followers feel about you and knowing how to help them will be very important. And that's one of the things that many people don't know about leadership. Interpersonal skills becomes very important even as a leader. It's not just about, okay, yes, let's have a vision and all that, but being able to relate with people, serve them, make them know that you're human. Mm-hmm. Leadership has to be human. Yeah. It needs to have a human face. And going forward, it's going to be very important. There's things that are going to change. But it's that human nature of leadership that is never going to change. And it's so important that you're able to serve people going forward. And we know that leadership is always going to be a team sport. So if you're going to influence people, like I said leadership is about influence. And leadership is influence. So people make that influence. Because at the end, you can't lead if you don't have followers. That's the truth. You can't lead the sky. You need to lead people. And if people are important, then you need to serve them and support them. And that is the kind of leadership approach you need going forward.
So to get there, to develop this next generation of leaders that are more sympathetic, that are serving others, what needs to happen?
It's so important. Like, first, of course, there's some skills that we need, clearly. Apart from just being empathetic, there's a skill set that leaders will need going forward. Of course, interpersonal skills are important. And that's what I said about empathy. Empathy is key. You need to be able to understand where people are coming from, their emotions and all that. You need to be able to build a team around you because at the end, it's about people. So you need to be able to build that team. You need to be able to manage people as well. Those skills are very important in leadership. But one thing, like I said initially, is you need to be able to be self-aware. You need to be able to manage yourself as a leader. You need to know what makes you, what are the weaknesses you have, what are your strengths as a leader. How many hours do I sleep in a day? If you sleep 12 hours in a day, then you're wasting like half of your life. But you need to understand yourself as a leader, and understanding yourself is important. So interpersonal skills are key. But beyond that, you need to also have conceptual skills as a leader. And because you need to know the skills before you even know how to develop them in the first place. The conceptual skills are key. Having a vision is clear. And, of course, we know about Martin Luther King, I have a dream. Every leader should have a dream, should have a vision. Because at the end, people would not follow you if they don't know what you stand for. So having a dream is important. Having that vision, I always say a co-created vision. That's why it's still a team sport. It's not just Jack saying that this is my vision. You let people know that it's our vision. It's our vision to transform Bolton. It's our vision to transform the UK. It's our vision to transform the US or transform the world. And when people buy into that vision, the next thing is, how do you get there? Because if there is a vision and there is no plan, then you're just a daydreamer. So you need a leader with a plan. And that is important.
How, for the next generation of leaders, how do they get those skills? Because from what you're seeing right now, across the world, do the youth have access to that type of capacity strengthening and skills to be able to become those future leaders?
It's true, and of course we know that this. I've spoken about. We know that the skills of a leader are important. The style of leadership is important. But the very good question is, how will they get there? How will they move from A to B? How can we develop the next generation of leaders? There are different approaches. I've written about them, and firstly, one of the approaches I always say is really mentoring is important. You need to support people. Formal mentoring. I'm privileged to be in the position that I'm in, so I'm always a mentor for people beyond academia, even in just as a coach as well. And in order for you to support leadership, people need to, this is how leaders should be, and you mentor them. These are the things that you've experienced, like challenges that you've had, and so that they don't need to reinvent the wheel. So formal mentoring is important. Informal mentoring is important. It has been shown to work, but we need to know how the mentoring works for A. A might not work for B. So mentoring is very key in developing the leadership skill capacity. Another way that our young people could also get there is by getting involved in personal development programs as well. We were speaking about the leadership conference. Those things are very useful. They're important. The opportunities there. You have people from universities, people from different parts of the world, people from Australia coming for it because they know the effect and they know the use of developing your leadership. So programs, workshops about leadership will be very key. Programs on leadership, CPDs, courses on leadership. If you want to learn about entrepreneurial leadership, then get into entrepreneurial leadership courses. Transformational leadership, get into transformational leadership courses. These things are available for people. But beyond that, of course, now we have the internet. We have different things. So leadership is a journey. It's an activity. So read books. Read my book on leadership. Read other people's books on leadership. Get TED Talks. You will see that you will get to know more about leadership in doing that. Another thing that I always say is, at the end, practice leadership. Look for opportunities to practice it. Practice. Practice makes perfect. If you want to learn how to be confident, what do? You get into positions whereby you'll be confident. If you want to learn how to talk, then start talking. You wouldn't learn how to be a talker if you don't talk. If you want to know how to present, then go and present in conferences. Don't be afraid to fail as a leader. Failure is not a bad thing. Make mistakes. I think one of the things that we said during the conference is don't be afraid to make mistakes. Leaders always make mistakes. But at the end, you know that you will learn from your mistakes. So it's so important for the young ones and those people that want to be leaders to aspire to ensure that they are able to take the opportunities. And support systems are also important. There are support systems for leaders. Leaders know that there are times you would like cry and people that will help you and support you. So don't be afraid to have those support systems in place. It could be your friend, it could be your family, it could be anybody. But there's always a support system that will also be there. So there are different ways, and really, to me, that's important. Not just knowing the skills, but knowing how you can develop that skill set. But it still comes with a mindset of self-awareness. You need to know the kind of skills that you're trying to develop.
So I know you founded the Centre for Leadership and Empowerment in March of this year. So what is the goal of the centre?
Thank you very much. And of course, you know much about the centre. You're an esteemed member of our International Advisory Board. So thanks for being part of it. But the centre, we're trying to do a lot. And it's my passion and it's our motivation and vision to try to empower people. One of the things that we tend to do, because I believe that leadership is about empowerment. And you need to be able to empower people. You have to provide that skill set and make them understand what leadership is all about. What are the capabilities that you can reach? Because you can reach the sky, really. So developing the skill set of a leader is what we try to do. But we do that beyond just saying it. We do it. We practice it. We do it by research. Like I said, I've done a lot of research on leadership, different approaches. So we know that we have to back what we do with research, and it's important. And all the research we do, we now educate people. So, okay, yes, we have done this. This is the skill set of entrepreneurial leadership. It is proven and trusted, and we can support you. So we run workshops, run CPD programs. I've done a couple of CPD programs in my career. The Scottish government. I've done trainings for the UK Cabinet Office, and all that. So we do all this to support people, and education is key. But also, we strongly believe in collaboration and partnerships, working with the industry as well. And that's one of the things that we do. And that's what makes us unique. So we go beyond just research education, but partnerships, collaborations, shaping our community. And that's what we do as a CLE, so the Center for Leadership and Empowerment. But we empower people. And as leaders, it's your job to empower people from diverse parts of the world and diverse groups as well. And we are doing, and we did a big, it's not good to blow your trumpet really, but I think the conference was good. And we try to do that. And we are still working on more things to do, open to partnerships and collaborations. And that's what we do as a center.
Fantastic. Well, Christian, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah.
Talking about leadership and also about the centre, where can our audience find you on social media?
I think I'm quite active on social media, so you can see me on different platforms. Of course, on LinkedIn, my name is Dr. Professor Christian Harrison. So that's, if you search me on LinkedIn, you see that. And my Twitter handle is Dr. Chris Harrison as well. Or not Twitter, it's called X now, isn't it? Yes. It's called X, so that's on Twitter. So I'm very active on LinkedIn and Twitter. Then, so you can see this thing. But my email address, of course, is online as well. So you can always reach out to me. I'm happy to collaborate with you.
Fantastic. So one last question. If you had your own social impact journal and you could write a page in that journal for a young person who, is potentially a future leader, but is hearing all the terms that you mentioned during the episode about different leadership approaches, and is thinking, I'm not sure which type of leader I am or which type of leader I want to be, what would you say to them? What would you write in that book?
So what I would tell the person is, understand yourself. It's so important. The new ones, because at the end there are different theories of leadership. One thing I strongly believe is clearly like leadership style you take depends on the situation, but it's so important that you're there to serve people, and that to me is key. Think of serving others, so servant leadership is important, and the skill set to leadership is also very important. So don't get embroiled in different theories of leadership. But okay, as a leader, I'm there to serve others, and I need to understand the skills I need as a leader. So what are the kind of skills that would help me be a better leader? I want to be more empathetic. I want to be more visionary. I want to be able to be more entrepreneurial. By the time you have that skill set as a leader, then you see that you serve others better. But leadership is about influence. So if you're able to influence people, the younger ones will be able to do better. But still, for the young ones, I always say, don't be afraid to fail. Failure is not bad. Most of the time, the thing about many people, when they see those leaders, they're like, okay, they feel that everybody has achieved so much, but they have failed more than they have succeeded. So you have to learn from your failures. Fail forward, I always tell people. Failing forward is good. You learn around, but still persist as a leader. Don't give up. I tell people, don't die until you're dead, because as a leader, you need to persevere. You need to be determined. So the younger ones, fail forward. Don't die until you're dead, and get the skills required for the next generation.
Thank you so much, Christian. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Jack, for inviting me.
Thank you so much for watching the episode with Professor Christian Harrison. If you did enjoy the show, please do leave a comment or leave a review. It really helps the show and allows us to bring even better guests to you every single week. See you next Monday on the Social Impact Journal.